Welcome to Good Dog Nation, the weekly video podcast that's all about having a good dog. Hosted by Michelle McCarthy, CDBC, CTAC, leading therapy dog authority and owner of Canine Homeschooling, and Kim Merritt, co-founder of GoodDogInABox.com, GoodDogPro.com, and founder of the URL Doctor. This episode is brought to you by GoodDogInABox.com. Reward-based dog training and dog bite prevention products for families with kids and dogs, and GoodDogPro.com, the online content subscription and community for dog professionals with reward-based dog training products, curriculums, and online courses to educate, motivate, and positively impact those that work with dogs. Now, let's join Good Dog Nation. Hey everyone, and welcome to Good Dog Nation. I am Kim Merritt, co-founder of Good Dog in a Box and Good Dog Pro. Welcome today. We've got a really interesting subject today, agility training. And I want to welcome my very special guest, Heather Adams, KPA CTP CBATI. Hi, Heather.
Hi.
So before we get started, I want to read Heather's bio and tell you a little bit about her. So Heather is the owner of Clever Paws, a reward-based dog training and agility facility, and yeah, that kind of rhymes, in Western New York between Buffalo and Rochester. She graduated from the Karen Pryor Academy for Animal Training and Behavior in 2008. She is a certified behavior adjustment training instructor and uses BAT techniques in her reward-based training. She's a graduate of the teacher certification program at the University of Buffalo and has practical experience teaching biology and science to all age groups, in addition to over 11 years of teaching people how to train and rehabilitate their dogs. Heather is uniquely qualified to help dog owners use the fun sport of agility for dogs with behavior issues, which is one of the things that we're going to talk about today. So thank you so much for joining me, Heather.
You're welcome.
So before we get started, and I ask this of guests occasionally, I'd like you to explain all the letters behind your name, because you have some interesting ones, and one in particular that I don't see a lot of. So tell us what they mean.
Okay. The KPA CTP is the Karen Pryor Academy certified training partner, and that means I went through the Karen Pryor Academy to become a professional dog trainer. It is a clicker training reward-based program of training that you go through. If you've read Don't Shoot the Dog, is probably Karen Pryor's most famous book. If you're wondering who that is, you can always check that book out. And then the CBATI is how they say this. That acronym is a Certified Behavior Adjustment Training Instructor. And behavior adjustment training is a method using real life rewards to teach a dog to not be afraid, not to be aggressive, not to have fear and anxiety.
So would that also be considered counter conditioning?
Yes, you actually are doing counter conditioning and operant conditioning within the same session. They're basically happening at the same time. But counter conditioning is probably the main thing that you would understand. The dog is learning to feel okay and to feel safe in the presence of whatever it is that triggers their anxiety or their fear.
And the wonderful thing about this is we're doing all of that with rewards as opposed to fear and pain.
Yes. You can't fix fear with more fear.
Right. Exactly. So we're talking about agility today in particular, and we might get into some other things too, but agility is our main subject. You say that agility is a great way to teach focus, self-control, and confidence. And I'm really interested with your particular background to get into how you're using agility. But let's start with the very basics for somebody who has no idea what we're talking about. Describe what is agility.
Okay. Agility is an obstacle course that you run with your dog. So there are tunnels, there's jumps, there are A-frames that they would run up like an A-shaped structure and down the other side. There's teeter-totter that they'll run up and run down the other side. So there's various obstacles, and the dog does the obstacles and the human runs alongside with them to show them where to go in the course. So courses are usually numbered 1 through 15 to 20 obstacles, and your job is to do all those obstacles in order within a certain amount of time and without making any mistakes.
I've never done agility myself. I love to watch it, and I'm just trying to envision. I used to have a Newfoundland, and I've always, the thought of me and this Newfoundland running through a course of 15 or 20 different things, just that in itself amuses me. Um,
Well, you don't have to
but
be coordinated. That's what a lot of people think. Oh, well, I'm not athletic. I'm not coordinated. I can't do that. And you totally can. When I first started doing agility, there was a woman that did it in a three-wheeled scooter with her dog because she was disabled. And she was amazing. She was better than some of us that were running on our own two legs. So you do not have to be any great athlete or coordinated to do it. It's fun.
Well, I'm glad that you said that because as a novice, not really knowing a lot about it and only ever seeing it, never having tried it, I would initially think, because I see people running, I would initially think, oh, you've got to be like a big athlete to do this. So I'm thrilled to hear that that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing agility?
Oh, gosh. Maybe a good 15 years, I'd say.
And how did you get into it?
I had a golden retriever named Tucker, and we had actually recently moved to Las Vegas, of all places, from the Northeast. So moving to the desert was a strange place, and we were just looking for something to do with the dog. It was kind of hot to do our normal hiking and stuff, and I came across agility, and we just thought we'd give it a try. And I was one of those people that was like, oh, I'll just do it for fun. But then once you catch the bug, then you want to compete.
So talk to me about competition. So obviously you do compete with your own dogs then.
Mm-hmm.
So what does agility competition look like? What does that scene in the dog world look like?
Well, you show up to a park, because where they used to have them in the beginning, now there's a lot of nice indoor facilities with turf, like you might see at a football stadium. They might be outdoors on grass or inside a horse barn or something like that. And the ring is set up there with the agility course. All the obstacles are out there. And when you get there, there's several different levels. So if you're new, it's typically novice. There's an intermediate and usually some advanced levels. And you compete against your level. So if you're novice and say you have a border collie like I do, they jump different heights. So my border collie measures to jump at the 20-inch height. So she would be competing against all the dogs in that 20-inch height at the novice level. And then there'd be a novice level course set up. So it'd be a little bit easier course than maybe the higher levels. Fewer obstacles, twists and turns would be a little bit less, so that's a little bit easier for the dog. And it's fun. There's people everywhere. Crates are all set up. It's a fun gathering. It's usually, like hanging out with your friends all day.
So do different types of dogs have different heights that they have to jump, or is it a novice, intermediate, advanced level that determines the height?
The height is determined by how tall the dog is. They measure at the shoulder, the withers, and then each venue that runs, there's AKC, there's NADAC, there's a whole bunch of acronyms for the different organizations that have their own agility rules, and they have rules spelled out. You're within a couple inches of that height, that's what you would jump. So my border collie measures like 18 and a half inches or something like that, and she runs 20 inches. So she'll always compete at that level. And then when she's new, she would be in the novice level. And most organizations, if you qualify 3 times at that level, you get your title. So if I go to a couple trials and I qualify in 3 novice events, I would get a title in that event. And then I can move up to the next level, and then I would compete against all those 20-inch dogs at the next level.
So does qualify, well, my question, does qualifying mean that you won that session, or is it just finishing it in a particular length of time?
That is a good question. So it kind of depends, but you don't have to win it to qualify. So it's time plus fault. So say you're given 50 seconds to complete the course. If you've completed it in 50 seconds or less, you might be able to qualify as long as you didn't make too many mistakes. So at the novice level, you can have certain types of mistakes. At the next level up, you can't make as many mistakes. So like, for example, all the contact equipment, if you go, just maybe Google pictures of agility equipment, you'll see what I mean by contact equipment is like there's a dog walk, there's an A-frame, the teeter-totter. Those are things that the dog has to jump onto and run down. So that's why we call them contact equipment. They all have a yellow painted zone on the bottom, and they have to hit that yellow zone with at least one paw on the way down. So if they don't at any level, and your dog flies off the top before they hit the yellow safety zone, they will not qualify. And so every organization has that rule. Same thing as if you drop a bar on a jump, you automatically are not going to qualify for that run. Those are safety things. Dogs need to be doing it safety, so they're really particular about those rules. And then there's other mistakes that they can make that are more allowable when they're novice dogs, that they're, when you're in the highest level of whatever organization you're competing in, basically you can't have any mistakes in order to qualify. You have to have a perfect run, what they often call a clean run with no mistakes.
So can any dog do agility, or is it really geared more towards certain breeds?
I'd say there's definitely certain breeds that are more popular. For example, the Border Collies. That's ones you see. And Shelties. Your Shetland Sheepdogs are also probably one of the more popular ones. But all kinds of dogs. I've seen Great Danes, Chihuahuas, Dachshunds. Some breeds you wouldn't even think could do agility, like Basset Hounds. Huskies. Really any breed, as long as they're, physically healthy, any breed can do it.
And speaking of physical health, are there any physical limitations that would inhibit a dog from getting involved?
Gosh, that's a good question. I can't think of any offhand. Most of the dogs I see at trials have all four legs and can run around and are pretty healthy. I did actually recently watch a really cute video of a Border Collie that used to compete but got hit by a car, and she was in a wheelchair. So her front legs worked and her back legs were held up by the wheels. And she didn't do any of the contact obstacles or the tunnel, but they removed all the bars from the jumps so that she could run the course just through like the jump stanchions and just run through with her wheels. And she had a glorious time.
Oh, that's awesome.
The dog still wanted to do it and still had fun.
So when you're talking about the contact spots, and if they miss them, they're disqualified. So there are judges, just like in a dog show, that are actually watching all of this go on.
Yep. So the judge stands out there in the middle of the ring. Typically the rings are a little fenced area about 100 feet by 100 feet, and the obstacle course is within there. And the judge is standing somewhere in there so that he can watch for the potential mistakes that your dog might make. And then there's usually an electronic timer that times you from the moment you leave till you're done.
So talk to us about behavior problems.
Okay.
And how you paired up behavior problems in your business, your training practice, with agility, because I find this to be fascinating.
Well, most dogs really need a job to do. Most breeds were originally bred to do something that requires like a lot of activity and requires a lot of energy. And now you've got a dog that is sitting home alone while we're at work 8 to 9 or 10 hours a day. And I think a lot of behavior problems, at least the most common ones, come from that. They're bored, they're not mentally stimulated, they're not getting enough exercise. And so agility is a great way for them to use their minds and use their bodies in a constructive way, in a way that is working with their owner, forming the bond with their owner. I see a lot of dogs who are fearful of things, like they might be fearful of new places or other dogs or loud noises or whatever it might be. Agility gets them focused on their owner and focused on doing a task. And when a dog is happy doing that, especially when you do reward-based training, it becomes fun. Agility, I've never seen a dog that didn't have fun doing agility. So they're having fun and they're focused. And so they're starting to learn that it's okay to be in this new place because this new place is fun. Or we get dogs that are a little bit fearful and they start to realize once the training process is happening, I'm having fun. And yeah, there's another dog over there that, maybe I'm a little anxious. There's another dog in this building with me or nearby. But as she's having fun and realizing that dog is over there and not bothering them, they're doing their own thing, they actually become comfortable working around that other dog and going to new places. And I think just being able to do something and know how to do it. So a lot of times you see a dog, especially when they're brand new and they come to like obedience class or even agility class, the dogs are pulling on the leash, they're barking, sometimes they're anxious because they have no idea what they should be doing.
Right.
They don't know what to do. But then once they realize, oh, when we get here, we're going to do this and we're going to do this, they have an expectation. Dogs are happiest, and I think humans are too, and we know what to expect. And we know we're going to be
Yes.
And when they know what to expect and that they have some control over how it's going to go, meaning if I do this behavior, treats and fun are going to happen with my owner. Now they have control over their environment. That makes them happy. And that's where I see the agility gives them control over their environment. They can do stuff. And once they start to learn the cues for all the different behaviors and the obstacles, they know how to respond. And that's when you see more focus on the owner and less focus on, pulling and barking at the other dogs and excitement going on. And, I've just seen so many dogs helped by it.
So then you're seeing long-term benefits. I'm assuming you're seeing this behavior then cross over into daily life as opposed to just when you're playing agility.
For sure. I've got, one dog right now, it's a little dachshund, and she's a little bit afraid of everything. But thankfully she recovers quickly from it. And then once she realizes, oh, this is what we're doing now, and she's getting treats for taking a jump or, jumping up on a block or doing, any of those foundation behaviors, she starts to relax and starts to have fun. And she's getting used to other dogs. And so each time she comes to class, she's now to the point where, oh yeah, other dogs over there. No big deal. Let's work on them. And so I see over time, she becomes more and more comfortable.
That's awesome. So what do you say to the dog owner who's listening, who has a dog that, may have some behavior issues, barks, definitely has some steam that needs to blow off? They're listening to this saying, oh, wow, never thought of agility. Sounds like a great idea. Want to try it. How does somebody start? What's the best way to get started with agility?
The best way to start is first working on your basic obedience. In order to be in a class for agility, your dog really does need to be at least somewhat able to work around other dogs. They need to be able to sit or down and then stay and kind of focus on their dog. So sometimes that can be a little bit hard at first. So having some obedience training first. So I would say if you have a young dog or even a middle-aged dog and you want to do agility with them, first find a good obedience class that's reward-based. And that will give you a good idea of how your dog will do around other dogs, because agility class, there's a lot of movement. So it's more distracting than just basic obedience class. And once you have some of those basics down, your dog understands how to learn, understands those behaviors and can do them pretty well with certain distractions, that's when you could start moving on onto an agility class.
And when you teach an agility class and you've got numerous dogs in the room, are they all on leash, off leash, or does it go back and forth?
In the very beginning with the foundation classes, everybody's on leash. And a lot of the things that we're doing are actually not with the agility obstacles yet. So doing your foundation behaviors are really important. I think that's what a lot of people miss. And the expectation of most people when they come to agility classes, they're going to get on the obstacles the first day. And in my classes, you're not going to get on the obstacles for weeks, or some of them for months, because there's a lot of foundation work that you can do. And it sounds like, oh, well, darn, I really wanted to get on the equipment. But there's benefits to waiting. But there's also, the biggest benefit is that when you're learning the foundations, you're going to learn you can do all that stuff at home. You don't have the agility equipment at home when you're starting. You don't own it. The stuff's expensive. I'll be honest, agility equipment and competing is an expensive hobby, but it's fun. But when you get started, you don't need any of that equipment. You can do all the foundation behaviors with stuff you've got laying around in your home. And that's what I teach in the foundation classes. Dogs learn how to approach new objects through shaping with the clicker is what we do in class. So you don't just jump up on the teeter-totter or the A-frame and start going. You might just jump up on a block. Like a foam block you could buy, at Walmart that's from the yoga department. And things like that, like a little wobble board or a skateboard. You can buy a skateboard at Walmart for, $10 and you've got a moving object that you can teach your dog to approach with confidence, and it moves, it might make noise. And they learn all those different kinds of things. You can just, before I tell my students this all this time, but when I first started out doing agility, I had nothing. And I had a backyard that was smaller than my living room now. And I had no jumps. I actually used sticks. I gathered sticks and I set them up on stuff and I had my dog jump over that, So you don't need anything fancy.
I know that sometimes as dog owners, we tend to not be patient when we're teaching new things or when we're expecting new things. And I know also we could get really excited. Oh, here's a new fun thing for us to do. Oh, I really want to do this agility thing. Hopefully the dog will like it too, which of course, most 9 chances out of 10, they're going to love it. What do we want to have as expectations as the dog owner, as the human in the agility team here, as to how long does it take a beginner dog to get into this and actually be able to run the course? I mean, you're saying right off the bat, you're not going to get on equipment on day one. So just kind of get that out of your mind. Yeah. But what does it look like as far as the training schedule and a practice schedule to really do this with your dog?
If you go to just a class once a week and you never practice at home, it's honestly going to take you a long time. Even if you don't have the equipment, there's a lot that you can practice at home that will simulate what you'd be doing on the agility course. So you can, if you practice at home 3-4 times a week and you went to a class once a week on the agility equipment, within a year to a year and a half, you could probably enter your first trial at the novice level.
Well, and I think that's that's a great expectation and a safe suggestion for somebody, just so they don't think that they're going to be doing this on week 2. You're not going to the trials on week 2. So
no.
How about age? As not so much human age, but dog age. Can puppies do this? What's a good time to get started?
That is a good question, because a lot of people think, oh, well, I can't start training my dog till they're a year old or 2 years or whatever the idea got into their head. You can start at day 1. You bought an 8-week-old puppy, you can start working on that stuff. Obviously, you don't want young dogs doing repetitive jumping or repetitive weave, like through the weave poles, or any of that kind of stuff. But there's so much foundation work. Getting them used to interacting with obstacles, and then what we haven't talked about yet is handling. So handling is my job. So the dog's job is to run the obstacle course. They need to know, when I get to that obstacle that mom says, for me, that's the next one in the course, I should be able to, I know what to do on that obstacle. I know how to perform it completely without mom's help. She's just telling me where to go. So my job is to tell her, next obstacle, then this one, and then that one. And the dog's job is to know when they get there how to do that obstacle. So handling is really just about the dog following your body language and your face. They like to see the eye contact, your facial expression, your body language speaks tons to dogs. You can do all of that stuff without the agility equipment with your little puppy in the beginning.
Right.
Or, it doesn't matter how old your dog is. They can learn to follow your body language, and you can do that anytime.
Do you allow puppies to come to your agility group classes, or do you keep them separated, adult dogs and puppies, in separate classes?
For the most part, we don't get a lot of young puppies because they're typically going through our puppy preschool and obedience classes first, or they're doing some private lessons to get themselves ready to join the class. So typically, I'd say the dogs in the class are at least 6 months old to a year or older in our group classes. And I think that's good, because our puppy preschool class is really geared towards not just socializing with other puppies and new people, but it's kind of sets you up for agility as well as real life. The purpose of the puppy preschool is to get used to weird noises like fireworks, the sounds of, we live in a rural area, so there's a lot of guns shooting this time of year. Get dogs used to that, loud trucks, kids playing, that kind of stuff, getting used to obstacles. So the puppies are climbing all over a lot of the stuff we use in agility foundation class. And that's the best place for puppies before they join the agility class. But it really sets them up for success.
So I think that I should ask, because I want to direct everybody. So your website for your business, which is in Western New York, is Clever Paws NY, like New York.com. But I saw the pictures of your facility, which of course makes me just, want to get a border collie and just show up at your doorstep tomorrow because it just looks so cool. But talk to us and tell us about this fantastic facility that you have at your place in New York.
We have a 50 by 50 foot building. It's insulated and recently installed with heating and air conditioning, which is really nice. We have rubber flooring. It's matting specifically made for agility, so it's got a lot of spring to it, and it also has anti-slip properties so that you can run around really safely. And then out the back door from there, we have two separate fenced areas. One small area for that we use for obedience classes, but we do our agility skills and drills and stuff out there. And the larger area, we can set up full-size like trial level courses out there to practice. So the students that are a little bit more advanced and are working on their handling and their trialing regularly, we set up actual courses from their competition so that they can practice them.
And do you have agility events at your facility?
We don't have competitions. About once a month, we'll have what we call run-throughs, and that is where we have, when it's indoors, it's a small portion of an actual competition level course set up, and they're kind of like fun runs, like a mini match, you could kind of say. They're running an actual course as if they were at a trial, but it's really just for fun. So we hold those, but no, we don't hold trials yet.
So tell us what nationwide or larger agility groups there are. What different organizations can we get involved in if this becomes something that we really want to get into?
Okay. The most common one that people will be familiar is the AKC, which is the American Kennel Club. And they run agility, and you can, even though it's the purebred organization, they allow all breeds. Doesn't matter if it's mixed, mutt, whatever. They can all compete in AKC agility. The other most popular one in our area is NADAC, which is the North American Dog Agility. I'm trying to think of what the C is. NADAC, so it's NADAC. And that's another organization that's all over the country, and that's another fun one. There's UKI, that's the one that we're most competing in right now, and that's United Kingdom International. That is probably the most equivalent to the types of courses they're running in Europe. And so if you want to compete at the world level someday, that's probably the organization that you would want to compete in the most. There's USDAA, which is United States Dog Agility Association. That's really popular. There's CPE, which is Canine Performance Events. And I'm probably missing a few.
I'm shocked there's that many.
Yeah, when it started out, it was really AKC was the only one. And then NADAC and CPE, I think, were some of the other ones to shortly follow.
Is there a big difference between the way that agility runs in one group versus another? Or are they basically all the same?
And how the actual competitions run in and of themselves, pretty much the same. You sign up ahead of time, you show up, you run at your novice level if you're a novice dog, and at your jump heights. You're always competing against dogs your same size. But in terms of the courses, that would be the big difference. AKC, I guess since they were the first, you could say they're the more traditional type of courses that they run. They use all the equipment. And then NADAC, for example, they don't use the teeter-totter. And there's a tire that they jump through that they don't use. So they don't necessarily use all of the equipment. But NADAC is fun because the obstacles are spaced a bit farther from each other, and the courses are more open, meaning there are not as many twists and turns. So the challenge with NADAC is your dog's going to run a lot faster. And they've got more space to run faster than you, so your handling becomes really important as well for that. And then like the UKI that I do, like I was saying, that is similar to the European courses, and those are very twisty turny. The obstacles are a little bit closer together. There's more difficult turns and changes in direction for the dog, so handling becomes really important with that as well. So each one has kind of their own different challenges.
So, and I'm just curious, I probably should have asked this before, but as the handler, I get there in the morning or afternoon or whenever I arrive, and how do I figure out where I'm supposed to go when I'm running? I mean, obviously the dog's following me, but who am I following?
Well, most people, when you go agility trials, are so friendly, and they're usually just so glad to have new people joining the sport that you can usually just ask anyone. You could just say, hey, this is my first agility trial. How do I sign in? Where do I go? Usually there's a table set up, and the trial secretary is there, and that's the person that's taken all the entries in the payment. They've set up all the paperwork that will say who's running and when and what order of events are for the day, and you can check in with that person, and each organization does it a little different.
And how about when you're actually running the course? Are the different elements of the course numbered, or do I, as the handler, have to memorize where I'm supposed to go prior to getting out there and starting?
Well, thankfully they're numbered, but you still have to pretty much memorize it. So that's a good question. We haven't talked about that yet. So right before your event, so say if you're in the novice jumpers course, you're going to be jumping a course that mostly has jumps in it. Yes, they call it jumpers. They'll call ahead, open for walkthroughs. And so you got to kind of pay attention throughout the day. So, okay, I know I'm a novice jumpers and they just call walkthroughs. So you leave your dog in their crate and you go into the course and you start at jump 1 and you just follow along where the numbered cones are. Some organizations will give you a map ahead of time so you can look at what the course looks like on a paper map. But you always want to walk the course anyway. Always walk the course, because as you're walking, so first what I do, I walk the course till I have the order memorized, 1 through 20 or whatever it is. I know we go from here to there to there. After I've memorized that, then I decide how I'm going to handle my dog between each obstacle. What am I going to do and when am I going to do it? And where do I expect my dog to be when I'm doing this? So that you have a plan before you go out there, because if you don't have a plan, your dog will just be running around, because without direction, they're just going to choose whatever they want to do, and it's not going to be what you want. So that's usually you have about 8 minutes to do that. And then there'll be a run order. So if there's 30 dogs in that event, you'll have to look and see what yours is, and they'll have so-and-so's on the line. That means that person is in the ring and they're setting up their dog to take off the leash and start doing their run. Then you're on deck and in the hole, kind of, was that from baseball or something? One of those sport balls. That's what I call it. So you always know when it's your turn. There's always somebody there that's reading that list and calling off who's coming up next. So and that's another thing I should probably mention when you go to a trial. It's fun to volunteer for different jobs, because the trial requires people to change the course in between events. There's people, so if somebody runs their event and they knock the bar, somebody's got to run out there and put the bar back up. Things like that. Someone's keeping track of the time, someone's keeping track of who's next on the course, and then there's someone that's writing down what the judge is saying. So the judge will do like this, or some sort of hand signal for faults. So if you dropped a bar, the judge will have a certain hand signal. If they go like this, that means you're disqualified. So
you're out of there.
There's someone on the sidelines that's writing all that down, so that they can keep records of how you did and write down your time. So those are all different jobs that when you show up as a competitor, you can volunteer for one of those jobs. And that's a great way to get involved and make friends and learn more about how it all works. Pick an easy job, like putting the bars back up. You can't screw that up. And it helps you learn how it runs.
And that's a great suggestion for somebody who's interested, but maybe a little hesitant, maybe hasn't seen it before. Volunteer, go and watch, get, Google agility in your area and look and see what groups are active in your area, what's going on in your area. Go volunteer and see how it all works. And that's a great way to get to know people and kind of get a little comfort level before you really get into it.
Yeah.
So Heather, I've got one more question for you before we end with the show. Give our dog owners some suggestions on what they want to look for in picking an agility trainer.
Okay, that's a good question too. You definitely want someone who does reward-based. And agility, it's different from your basic obedience. Most people aren't using punishment-based training for agility, because we're trying to get the dog to do something that doesn't necessarily always come naturally to the dog. So reward-based. And, I'm probably biased because I'm a clicker trainer, but if you can find somebody who does clicker training, I think that, and does a lot of foundation. So if you go to your first class and they are taking a treat and putting it in front of your dog's face and just luring them over the obstacles on day one, just cut your losses and leave. Because it sets your dog up for failure. The foundation is so important. And the reason I like to shape everything with the clicker, and maybe not everybody necessarily knows what that means, but it's basically setting your dog up to offer behavior on their own without you putting a treat in front of the face and luring them. Or the typical one where you get them to sit, you put the treat up and you push their butt down to try to make them do a behavior to help them. We're not doing that with clicker training. We're letting the dog interact kind of on their own with the new objects and then rewarding them, teaching them that your self-confident approach to something new paid off and they're going to want to do it again. That sets the dog up to be fearless. It sets them up to be careful with their body so they're not going to get injured. And it's going to set them up to really know how to do the obstacles when you finally get to the real obstacles. So they're going to do them correctly and more safely, which is super important.
It is super important. And thank you so much. What an interesting half hour. I've learned so much. I really, honestly, at this point, I want to go out and try agility. This sounds like so much fun. I should. I need to do that. So thank you so much for joining us, and get out there, everyone, and try some agility with your dog, especially if you have a dog with some behavior issues that is, at home alone a lot. This is a great way to kind of burn off some yayas and really make that connection with your dog that's going to really help with listening and with training at home, as well as something fun for you both to do. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Bye, everyone.
If you'd like to participate in the rest of today's conversation for professionals who work with dogs and receive continuing education credits from participating organizations for listening, visit gooddogpro.com and subscribe today. Use coupon PODCAST to get 40% off your first month or annual subscription.